What are you saying? There must have been a terrible mistake, or it's someone's stupid joke," said in the phone. Oksana on the other end of the phone paused for a few seconds and sympathetically said, "Oksana Viktorovna, we offer you our condolences, but you need to come to the identification procedure breakfast 8 a.m. and dictated the address of the subscriber. Immediately disconnected. Holding the phone receiver in her hand, young woman could not accept the information just heard. Because according to her husband Oksana, Dmitry is no longer there. Sitting in the hallway on the floor and hugging her hands, burst into tears. She sat on the floor, hugged her knees with her hands, burst into tears, and it seemed as if the door would open and her Dima would come in, hungry as always, but cheerful, and everything would be as before. And all that she had just heard would seem to be a mistake. How long she sat there, Oksana didn't know, and how long she would have sat there, had it not been for the phone call that brought her out of her stupor. It was from the kindergarten. "Oksana Viktorovna, all the children have been taken away, and only your Jaeger was left." "Yes, I'm sorry, I'll be right there," Oksana whispered, and began to pack. She had completely forgotten about Jaeger, how she was going to tell her son about everything, since he was so attached to his father. These thoughts would not let her go. After washing and powdering her eyes, the woman went to the kindergarten. Jaeger ran happily to his mother as soon as she appeared in the door. He was a funny boy of 5, like 2 drops of water. Similar to his father. He told his mother something animated. He told his mother something animatedly on the way home, but she just nodded back, barely holding back tears. After putting her son to bed, Oksana did not tell her relatives the main news, and in the morning, after taking Yegorka to the kindergarten, she went for identification. The investigators who conducted the case reported that Dmitry's car went off the bridge into the enemy and caught fire. The husband's body was very badly burned, so it was possible to identify him only by personal belongings. Twice Oksana lost consciousness, and when they brought a bundle of things, among which was a watch that her husband had given her on their 10th wedding anniversary, there was no doubt that it was him. After signing the necessary documents, she exchanged contacts with the investigator and went to the hospital. For some reason, today her apartment seemed completely empty and cold. Everything reminded her of her husband. Even his perfume could be smelled in the bedroom. Frames with their family photos hung in the bedroom. Oksana remembered how just a month ago they celebrated their wedding anniversary. And Dmitry was especially cheerful. They dreamed of going on a trip to Greece, this country fascinated by its historical sites, which Dmitry often told his son about, but now it's nothing more than a dream. Because the way it was will never be the same again. Most of all, Oksana was worried about what would happen to her son when he found out. Of course, Oksana Viktorovna, this is Oleg Sergeyevich, the investigator in your case, introduced himself. "A man, how are you? I was worried about you. You were so sick." A little embarrassed, the man said. "And how would you feel if you came to identify your wife?" His concern for some reason made Oksana angry. "Sorry, but I'm not married. I'm actually on a business trip. I can pick up the body the day after tomorrow." "Sorry again." And the phone rang. The next 3 days were like a dream. Oksana took care of all the organizational issues. For all this needed money Oksana did not have, but her husband had a business that according to him brought a good income. It was a car service, so Oksana decided to go there to find the necessary amount of money. Entering her husband's office, Oksana saw his friend sitting at the desk. "Hi, what are the fates to us? Car broke down, by the way. I offer my condolences," said Eugene. "Hi, Jean, where Dimka kept the proceeds?" asked the woman. "What proceeds? Oxen? Dima sold me the business 2 weeks ago, but I'm sorry, I can't help you yet. I gave him everything I had and had to borrow." How it was sold? From such news Oksana was completely confused. "But Dimka did not tell me anything about it." The woman had nothing to do but to say goodbye. The news about the sale of the car service center did not fit in her head. Usually her husband always shared in the end. The woman was helped by Oksana's relatives and her colleagues at work, that's all. Now it's time to learn to live again, thought the woman who took her son away from his grandmother. She tried to create a comfortable life for the two of them, concentrating on taking care of Yegorka. She was distracted from her grief. "Mom, when Daddy will come? I miss him," asked her son. Oksana expected such a question. So she quickly found something to answer. Son, Daddy went on a business trip really for a long time, but there he will earn money, and we will be there. There he will earn money, and we will go to Greece. Remember Daddy's stories about this beautiful country, remember tears, she answered her son. The boy nodded his head happily and promised to wait. One day in their apartment sounded a phone call, once again breaking the silence. Called from the bank and invited Oksana for a conversation. Go to the bank the next morning. The woman with excitement listened to the information from the manager. Oksana Viktorovna, your husband took a loan in our bank. You are the guarantor on this loan. Therefore are responsible for the repayment of the issued funds, said the manager. Repayment of the issued funds, said the manager, and voiced the amount to be repaid by the woman. Oksana got cold. It was a huge amount for her. She remembered how 6 months ago Dima gave her the documents to sign and said that it was a mere formality. Who could have thought then how it could turn out? But I do not have such an amount of money. My husband sold the business and I work as an ordinary accountant in the company. Besides, I have a dependent young son. In confusion, said the woman, we sympathize with you, but understand in us. We gave you the funds and you us otherwise. We will have to confiscate your property to repay the debt. Oksana lost in court. Oksana lost the case. Her car and summer house were confiscated. Well, at least the apartment remained, as it was inherited from Oksana's grandmother and transferred to her son. Only this saved them. Managed to reach an agreement with the bank that she will pay the remaining amount gradually. Oksana loaded herself with work to the fullest to earn money somehow. She also took a job at home, working at night when her son fell asleep. Investigators found out that her husband had lost control of the car, because he had been drinking, and it didn't fit with Dmitry, because he never drank. Knowing that he would get behind the wheel, he almost never drank. But lately there had been a lot of surprises, and Oksana got to know her husband from a new side. Why he didn't say anything to the business and where he had put the whole sum, a question she often asked herself and never found an answer to. Her son still asked about Daddy and when they would fly to that magic country, and Oksana promised him that one day they would definitely go there. One weekend they decided to bake their specialty cake, as they often did in their free time, but they lacked the necessary ingredients, and Oksana went to a nearby store, leaving her son to watch cartoons. But the picture that greeted her upon arrival caused real horror. Her son disappeared. Oksana ran all the surrounding yards, but there was no result. Returning home, she wanted to dial the number of the police. On the phone rang itself. Well, hello. Oksanaka male voice was unfamiliar and his intonation did not. The woman was almost hysterical. I'll ask the questions and you keep quiet. Listen, your husband owed me a considerable amount of money. He promised to pay me back from the sale of his business. But he died, so you'll have to pay the debt for him. I'll give you 3 days while the boy stays with me. Later, I'll tell you the time and place of the handover. You'll find your son, said the man and fainted. Oksana ran around the house frantically thinking what to do, realizing that this was the only possible option. She took out the investigator's card and dialed him and told him everything. 3 waits dragged on forever. And at the appointed time she stood with a suitcase, trembling with fear, waiting for the meeting. The operation went perfectly. Jaeger was not hurt, and the others were arrested on the spot. In the evening of the same day the investigator came to their house with flowers. He told them that those who had kidnapped Jaeger were facing a heavy sentence, as they were undergoing it. He told them that those who had kidnapped Igor would face a heavy sentence, as they had several other serious cases, and offered to celebrate his rescue quietly. Life returned to normal. Oksana almost paid off the bank. Oleg became a frequent guest of her family and got along well with Igor, but Oksana was in no hurry to reciprocate. Although she clearly liked the man, on her son's 9th birthday, when the closest people were invited, Oksana prepared an unusual gift for him. Having received a large envelope, the boy opened it and did not immediately understand what it was, but when he saw the sights his father had talked so much about, he was delighted. The flight was scheduled for tomorrow morning, so after packing a suitcase with the necessary things, they went to the airport, but after getting stuck in a traffic jam on the way, they almost missed their flight. Passing through passport control as the last of the passengers, they practically ran onto the plane. They finally took their seats and relaxed. Everyone thought about his Igor, about seeing the country of his dreams, Oksana about the fact that Dima never lived to see this happy moment. Just before landing, Igor went to the bathroom, but when he came back with a face as white as chalk, he whispered to his mother, "Mom, I saw Dad in the plane." Oksana decided that her son was overexcited about the trip and rushed to calm him down, telling him that he was definitely wrong, but the son stood his ground. And when they got off the plane, she was horrified to see that her son was right. It was Dima, walking by the hand of a pretty young brunette, looking like a happy man. Ironically, they had checked into the same hotel, so their evening meeting was imminent. Oksana put her hand on his shoulder. "You must have missed us." Dmitry almost choked on a sip of cocktail at the sight of his wife. "How did you find me?" Only he could say, "And I can do a lot of things lately. Life has taught me not without your help. Of course I can pay your debts, I can buy a child from your friends, yes, and no, how could you do this to me with my son and I do not have to answer to you? Go away from you. You will see." "My wife," scornfully said wife, "and she knows about the existence of another wife and son. You are the most real. You will see that life will definitely punish you for all that we had to endure because of you." Having said this, Oksana returned to the room in the firm intention to change the hotel in order not to spoil the rest of the sun. Having spent a wonderful 2 weeks in Greece, they tried not to return to this subject, and on arrival in Moscow they were waiting for Oleg with a huge bouquet of flowers and a box with a ring. And Dmitry, his companion, was waiting for the police.